AMD. Now you probably can't see it because of the quality of this camera, but this is an FX, and there's 6,300 of them in here. This 10-year-old processor was pretty beefy for its time, packing an impressive 6 cores with a base clock speed of 3.5 GHz per core. Now, to literally any normal person, that means absolutely nothing. But put simply, this tiny little silicon square is a force to be reckoned with until it isn't, and don't worry, we will get to that. The FX series in general is known for being some of the first CPUs with 6 to 8 cores that people like you, people like me, could have at an affordable price. These guys had great performance, great reliability, and great lawsuits for their manufacturer. Keep in mind that with the threat of Intel beating them in the technological arms race that existed for the time for fitting as many cores as they possibly could into a CPU without making the CPU too huge, AMD resorted to some dodgy advertising. See, even though they're advertised as having 6 to 8 cores, this particular model having a 6 core, they only really had 3 to 4 cores instead. This one had 3. Now this is grossly oversimplifying, but for a core to be considered separate, it needs its own separate things called execution units. This includes stuff like core cache and the floating point unit, or FPU. What AMD effectively did here was have 3 or 4 dual-core modules, depending on which processor you have, and tied both cores in a module to a single set of execution units, meaning that in practice there were only 3 to 4 cores. But if you ignore the whole dodgy marketing thing, you can easily pick one up for like 30 to 100 bucks on eBay and get a generally solid experience from it, especially if it's used, because you know it still works. Seeing as the 3 cores on this thing are relatively fast, 3.5 GHz as mentioned before, gaming and editing in 1080p is a relative breeze and you can get a decent frame rate from it. But when it comes to recording while gaming, it's a different story to say the least. I'll just put up an example.
Incoming!
However, there are no internal graphics, meaning the max voltage it'll take is an impressive for the time 90 watts, allowing for a little bit of overclocking. Speaking of which, how well does it take that? The answer, not really well. Going over 4.1 GHz with a range of voltages and a good cooler, I saw massive stability issues, mainly blue screens, random freezes. With that being said though, the FX-6300 isn't all that bad of a CPU, especially if you don't push it too hard over its limits, which is impossible to do, especially if you don't touch the system BIOS. So all in all, I would say this is a pretty good deal for the package you get, especially since most prices are, like I said before, $30 to $100. This is a good product. I recommend it. Thank you for watching.